Hey, Mark. You're still muted.
Still mute.
Ah, there you
Sti-
are.
All right, just a second.
Yep.
Uh,
Hey, Eric.
How are y'all?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Eric,
Chilly here, but not as chilly as y'all, I expect.
Oh,
it's
damn. It's -3 right now.
it's -11 here.
God.
Fahrenheit or
I'm up north.
Yep.
yeah. No,
In fact,
yeah, so it's I don't know what it is here.
I'm taking advantage
10.
of the heat island effect, I suppose. It's what?
It's 10 here, so
All
we're
right.
still above zero.
Yeah. Well, and the wind's probably blowing more there than it is here.
I mean, you've got the plains, we've got the lake. It's not that different, really.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
there we go.
So
But yeah, we walked for breakfast, so we were brave.
good.
If it were
Good.
-11, we might think twice.
Yeah. I have not been walking. I've been expecting an exercise bike to arrive, but
Oh, really?
it's still sitting in Chicago, I think. The storm that we had
Yeah.
recently kind of prevented it from making any progress.
Huh.
Yeah. So, hey, Thomas.
Thomas.
So, yeah. So we're just commiserating about the weather.
Ah, yeah.
How is it out on the East Coast?
Uh, DC area missed a storm that hit sort of middle and southern Virginia that dropped a little snow one of the days this week. And we're supposed to get snow tonight, I think.
Yeah.
Like middle of the night to morning, which I'm hoping they're saying icy to light to moderate accumulation, but the moderate they're saying to about 2 inches
Hmm.
for this area, which I'm hoping doesn't disrupt farmers market. That's all I care about.
There you go. Yeah.
Sundays are my food acquisition days.
Yep. Yeah, I'm expecting in here, and I think up north too. We're probably supposed to be getting a storm
Ooh.
over Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe hopefully ending by Wednesday because I was planning on
Hmm.
heading up to Bemidji on Wednesday and seeing my kids
Hmm.
for a couple of days before the holiday. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. In other news,
Oh, hey.
I
Cool.
finally,
Oh,
yep, I got my proof copy. I proofed it. I made a few corrections, and I pushed the button. So
Cool.
it's out in the world now, hopefully. So
Very cool.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's probably. I don't know that I'm going to want to, kind of do more with it. I think I've added the
book
parts on.
tour.
Well, yeah, book tour, but I mean, as far as adding new stuff, because between the 2022 edition and this one, I added the reading and research kind of chapters, which aren't like entire books, like how to read a book or anything like that, but I think have enough in them to, I mean, I was sort of pitching it at kind of the undergrad level, and I used a lot of it with my undergrads this semester, and it seemed to work fairly effectively. Really basic, kind of stuff like,
Yeah.
I actually, and the ironic thing was, I assigned term papers to everybody in all six of my classes this semester. So 190, 180, 190 term papers I'm gonna have to read. I only told them they had to be 2,000 words. So
Yeah.
so it could be worse, I guess. And I also told them that if they sent them to me before the due date, I would read them and mark them up in track changes and give them suggestions and stuff. So
Hmm.
a lot of students, dozens and dozens of students have been sent them to me already, and but I suppose probably more than half won't, and we'll just try to throw a finished draft over the transom right at the last
Silly.
minute. But I've been running into, basic kind of research things like, yeah, you do need to have sources, and you actually need to cite them in the body of the essay. You can't just put a works cited, thing at the back of it and, expect, I think the thing that was the most that was the most surprising to them was the idea that it's necessary to guide your readers to the material so that they can not only verify your claims but also find out more, right? Because I think that's
the
a
idea.
big reason that I have read so much of the stuff I have is to gather more sources. But yeah, so that's been kind of a little side quest adventure. Actually, I also have a proof of the first volume of my primary source anthology that I got back and that I've made some changes to, and it's almost ready to pull the trigger on too. I just have to decide whether I want to make it a little bit thicker by adding maybe a dozen more um, sources. I'm not sure. I was thinking I would have about 60 sources per volume. Now I'm thinking I might push it to 75. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been amusing myself with during the end of the semester. So I was kind of talking to kill time to see if Chris was going to pop in, but I think we might as well go without him. And if he shows up, he shows.
Yeah, he may be in San Diego.
All right.
There's a indie web gathering this weekend there, and there's a session on card catalogs and managing book collection.
Oh God, how could he avoid that? Yeah.
And so he got
So
tapped.
even if he hadn't wanted to attend, he would have been magnetically drawn
All right.
Yeah,
against his will.
he got called out an awful lot, and I got called out because I have my method for working with books in Obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
I've shared with that group quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally put an awful lot of I don't have that many. It's probably like 12 or 14 Obsidian templates and put them out into GitHub and shared them out. But I have one for book notes and then one that I use with book search plugin that goes out to Google Books and pulls all the metadata.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just put a book name in, click the link, opens up a blank page, use the prompt or protocol, the slash, to get to book page, and then it goes, click that, goes and grabs the title, and then does a lookup and says, hey, which of these books are the ones you're looking for? Usually it's there.
Cool.
Sometimes I have to play around with it a little bit, but then it pulls in all the metadata, and then I have it build a link to the book note page, and then I put the book note template in. But I mostly use a text expander, so I can do it even if I'm away from Obsidian, drop it into drafts or whichever,
Mm-hmm.
where any markdown editor that I have in front of me, and then push it into the directory Obsidian overlords.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I noticed I got an email. I guess I'm still on Nick Milo's email list, and I got an email that he was in which he was talking about the enhancements to the mobile version of Obsidian.
Yeah.
I didn't read much beyond the kind of the headline and the first paragraph, but it did look like it looked like it's a lot cooler than it used to be. I'm still not sure I would use it a whole lot on my phone.
Yeah. I
Although
just
I
use
might
it
use it
for
on my
lookup.
iPad, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It doesn't work with, it depends how much you depend on plugins, right?
Yeah.
You
I've
can
got
have plugins,
Yeah, I know, but
not
how
the
does
rich
that?
ones.
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
Right. I it's for me, it's like secondary,
yeah.
right?
So
Quick
so
note, quick
you
note,
search what you already
or
have,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I use mobile for finding things, and usually on my phone I'll use drafts and then just drop something in, push it into. I've got an action set up within drafts that will push it into the folder Obsidian pays attention to.
Mhm.
And then I just have set a reminder that when I get back to my desktop or iPad to pull it in properly
Mhm.
So,
and
so you
link
use
it.
it through a cloud-based
Yeah, have it sitting.
book notes, or I mean, not
You have, yeah, my directory's sitting, my notes
because they warn you
folder.
not to use iCloud. I know.
It works really well with iCloud. That's what I
Yeah, I
use.
think so too. But every
It,
time I, play around, is don't do this. Don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
it works. So I had tried it initially. So I started using Obsidian in June or July 2020. Um, and I was was taking notes on books while I was reading in the car, waiting for my son to get out of uh, training
Mm.
sessions. And um, so I started putting my folder in Dropbox,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
Dropbox is an utter mess for like live annotations, or it was
Mm.
within Obsidian, because it would update and try to version every minute or two. So
Mm.
by the time I got home, I would have like 20 or 30 versions of that document.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, this is an utter mess. And then it really didn't work well with iCloud.
Mm.
And then they made some slight modifications and it works really well.
yeah,
Oh, good. Well, maybe
Um,
I'll go back to iCloud then, because I was using Dropbox for all. Actually, the vault for the book club is in
yep.
Dropbox,
yeah,
and I do,
right.
we do get conflicted copies of, especially the what is it?
Nominations in community, I think.
Yeah, that, and also, I mean, I used to have. It's
It's
not always live. I have to go and turn on, turn off
Oh,
the
updates
updates,
deal.
or the thing that
yeah.
tracks the, all of the posts, whatever that was called. I
Yeah.
forget.
Community forum's the one that gets conflicted copy a
Yeah,
lot.
a lot. Yeah. Yep.
And I just pull that into I pull community forum just into a regular markdown editor to read
Mhm.
and write from.
Mhm.
I haven't crossed the streams and brought it into my Obsidian.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I actually had been, I ran into something buggy that sort of alarmed me. And
Hmm.
so I made it, I basically got my Obsidian, my master vault, kind of back local. And, which means, I mean, it sort of, if you pull it local, that kind of sometimes means like taking it off. It certainly means taking it off Dropbox, but sometimes
Hmm.
it's unclear to me whether or not it means, that you're really taking it off iCloud as well. That could be more transparent, I think.
Hmm.
Where it actually is living, and how that relationship is working. But
Yep.
anyways, be that as it may. So we've got this third section. I thought it had a lot of
It,
weird stuff in it, um,
it, I,
some of which I was more interested than others.
yeah, it was an odd collection of things. I
Yeah,
didn't go back to see what the section was called, but it started going really deep into four different areas. And the one on, I want to go back and do another reread of the chapter on Chile.
Mhm.
Um, and as I was reading through it, I was like, whole, it was one of those just like, I had a whole lot of questions and then was just
Mhm.
like
Yep.
partly not appalled, but I'm like, oh, this again.
Yeah.
Um, and just, yeah, I don't, it was a little problematic. I'm like trying to figure out why having data centers for English language services, that far away,
Mhm.
how that's going to really help,
Yeah. Yeah.
other than it is just available resources.
It
But
did.
sounds like it's what you can get away with.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that's the case our author is
yeah,
making.
Mhm.
yeah.
But the one thing that I'm running behind, so I just finished reading that section this morning.
Okay.
Uh, so I also want to go back. There's two things that came to my mind. One is, okay, so we present that these things were changed, that they moved away from the most resource extractive, although she sort of drops the whole chipset extraction and moves back to data center extraction,
Mhm. Yeah.
or natural resources versus water and reuse.
Yeah.
But she also then doesn't go, okay, but we know that they've built these data centers and expanded their counts, as we talk about in the next section
Yeah.
or the next chapter, but we don't know where they did it. Right. So, right. So we,
Yeah.
so, okay. So the most aggressive colonial-ish mechanism was abated, but the problem still moved. So where did it move to? She doesn't cover that.
Mhm. Well,
I don't think,
yeah,
or I missed it.
yeah, and no, it was interesting. I thought she did a pretty good job with Chile, and
Yeah.
I'm always very interested in, in news about Chile because I
Mm-hmm.
wrote my master's thesis about the Chilean copper industry,
So,
back about 20 years ago, and then tried to live there, and that didn't work out. But I, but so I was very, I was sort of tuned into kind of Chilean history up until, the aughts, when, Michelle Bachelet was in power, and then she was out of power, and then she was in power again. This new generation of kind of reformers and radicals that are coming in. This 35-year-old guy I was not aware of at all. I was also not aware that there had been a collapse of the mine in Chuquicamata, which is an open pit. It used to be the biggest open pit in the world until the BHP Billiton one next door became even bigger. But so how that collapses is mysterious to me. But that whole thing, I hadn't been, I hadn't been aware of that. So that was all kind of good information for me to kind
I
of
mean,
look back on.
I'm expecting she's trying to make a case towards colonialization in multiple forms, right?
Yeah.
Right. And now colonialization of the arts seems to be the next chapter's sort of
Yeah.
hinting at.
Yeah.
But Dan, the other thing that I noticed is I was like, well, what's the state of Chile now? Because I wasn't sure if it was like she's talking about it, the person who was in leadership at the time of this book, which is early 2020. I mean, apparently they're about to likely replace him with a conservative leader.
Yeah, it tends to kind of bounce back and forth between
Yes.
the socialists and the Christian Democrats,
Right.
who are a little bit more conservative, but certainly not as and when I was there, which was much closer to Pinochet than we are today, there still was kind of a Pinochet generation who were sort of wistfully imagining, how they could,
If only
how
they
they
had
could,
more
how they could
hands.
somehow make the society more authoritarian and more top down. The way the other thing that I found interesting was I hadn't been as really kind of focused on the way in the 50s and 60s the Chicago school seeded the ground, for an entire generation before. So it wasn't really just an abrupt, Pinochet's in power, let's bring in the Chicago boys, after 1973 sort of thing. So I found that interesting.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To backtrack a little bit before there, I thought the conversation about in chapter, what was it, 10? I thought there were some interesting things in there too. The whole, the Dolly and Midjourney, thing, especially Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, being, these kind of more startup-y kind of, image generators that she says were, just as good, if not better, without all of the infrastructure and with having fewer safety measures, which I'm not sure, really was relevant to their quality unless it had to do with more training data being available, kind of thing.
The way she lays out the mechanism for advancement, that it's all pretty much compute, and the way money is spent, as I understand the argument, the way money is being spent, it almost excludes by we've only got so much of it.
Yeah.
Investigating research and better quality data. Which, I mean, that's the thing that's always bothered, I mean, not bothered me because I'm not part of that world, but kind of the movement of the expertise out of universities into these small number of big corporations,
Mhm.
to the extent they can't even, there's not even enough of them for all the corporations. And then what's the downside of that concentration?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it almost kind of is analogous to that issue that she'd been talking about in the previous chapters, right? About where scale is really where it's at, and it's the only thing
right,
that matters. And now we're starting to see sort of counterexamples to
right.
that assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an interesting moment. Again, I'm reading the Kindle, so I don't really know what page it's on. I think it's around page 242, where she says, more existentially, OpenAI had run out of data.
Hmm.
And and I thought that was kind of an interest. I mean, that's like, we're just going to let that slide by,
But then about
Yeah.
Brockman then starting to take the basically the transcripts from all the YouTube stuff
Yeah.
as a news source. Look what I found.
Right.
It's
Right. Well,
like,
and that whole little dance that they did with, yeah, I mean, certainly it's technically a copyright violation, but is YouTube going to go after us? And if they do,
Yeah.
how's that going to impact their ability to scrape stuff off
sure.
the web that, really they shouldn't be using as training data? So it's all like this kind of, backroom, not even handshake, just sort of nod and wink kind of agreements that seem to be driving this,
Yeah.
which
One of
is
the things with
problematic.
the scraping YouTube, because they were having to transcribe.
Transcript. Yeah.
Yeah, and the transcriptions at that point were decent, but not all that great. And you're putting that into your model. And I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like,
Just
which is kind of today's problem because there was somebody was
Shittification.
throwing around 55% of things on the web right now, or new content on the web is AI generated,
Mhm.
which I think is, I don't know. I think it's insanely high. I would have
That's an
expected,
estimate. You mean, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm like, there is still a sizable chunk that is.
Hmm.
And I've been getting really frustrated with Medium because I will run across a Medium article that will have background on something. I'm like, hey, here's, Python script that will help.
yeah.
And I'm like, I think this package is a large, complicated package, and I've used it in the past,
Hmm.
but maybe it has improved and it is as simple as dropping these 4 lines of code in and it will do this.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I go and read and I'm like, no, it is still the, 3 days of setup to get it to do something. And it is, those 4 lines are not going to get you far.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, someone just, full, you know, AI generated content. I'm like,
Hmm.
and I know folks at Medium, I'm just like, I just need to write them. I'm like, please
Yeah.
require a flag if it's AI generated. If
Yeah.
it's AI edited, for grammar, other stuff, that would be helpful to know. Oh,
Hmm.
in the front of my Empire of AI, so I went to go see Karen talk,
Hmm.
but she has a stamp
Oh, wow.
for this is 100% human created, no
Wow.
AI
Oh.
involved.
Hmm.
I was like, hey, that's kind of I kind of chuckled. Within the indie web community, there's been a whole lot of discussion about having that, like having a marker on each page that
Hmm.
this content is 100% human created.
Hmm.
Um, and just being able to say these are my ideas, this is stuff that I have done.
Yeah.
Um,
How
and
how
then
there's layers. There's going to be lots
yep,
of layers of that, right? Because that would mean that if you go to, an online encyclopedia
yep,
for general information, kind of filling in the gaps of a narrative or something,
hmm
where does it trigger? Because a lot of that increasingly is going to be AI generated. Um,
it so Wikipedia is really strict and has so many humans actually going in and editing
Mhm.
and cleaning up, and
Okay.
you have to, everything has to be validated, fact checked.
Yeah. Okay,
And
maybe that
it's
wasn't a good example, but
no, but it's
Grokpedia, for example.
yeah, that's an absolute utter mess. Like I have read stuff on there,
Have
and I
you?
was really happy to find that I was not in there.
Oh,
And because a few of my friends are like, "Hey, I'm in Grokpedia," and it is just absolute lies. And
wow.
some of it was just really libelous. And they're like, "Who can I sue?" Like I've talked to a lawyer,
Mm,
and I'm just like, "Holy crud!"
wow.
And
Yeah,
they're just like,
I
"This is
haven't. I
bad."
heard some announcements about it. I have not looked at it at all.
And a good chunk of it is just a pure scrape of Wikipedia
Hmm.
to some degree. Um, a lot of the links that they have don't work.
Well, that sounds
Um,
maximally truth-seeking.
yeah. And they also just they pull it off a lot um, from Twitter,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and which is problematic. And
Yeah.
so it's,
What's their value add?
well, value is,
They think it's value.
yeah. I
It's
would
their
say carrying a
unique
lot of weight, but it's
contribution.
carrying an awful lot of weight in a sieve. But yeah, yeah, it just gets, I like the guy's name, Chang, the guy who wrote the story that became, oh crap, I just lost the movie. Um, he wrote a really good article for the New Yorker about essentially AI feeding itself and just how quickly things get to be really bad.
Yeah.
Um, and just and really problematic. And you just lose fidelity, you lose fact,
Right.
and then you just start drifting off into these weird
Well,
spaces.
and there was that, when we were all, sort of excited about, or we were all, when people were all excited about the idea of AGI, right? There was
Yeah.
that idea that, that at some point, this process was going to get away from us, and in a millisecond, it was going to do a bazillion cycles and improve itself, in generations, in the blink of an eye, and it's kind of ironic, Thomas, that the other
Mm-hmm.
thing is happening, that the enshittification process is sort of going exponential.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. One of the things in that chapter that also sort of jumped out at me was the way that, increasingly and repeatedly decisions are made by OpenAI based
Mm-hmm.
on the question of, will this wake the dragon Google? And
Yeah.
and so
It.
so one camp is saying, well, let's be careful about doing this because it might wake the dragon, and then the other camp is saying, no, let's do it right now before the dragon wakes. um, Either way doesn't seem like a real healthy way of kind of going.
Yeah. And Google has awoken, and because their new release of Gemini did a massive improvement on a lot of fronts
Was that
with
just based at the
reliability.
compute resources they're throwing at it?
Uh, some of it's compute, most of it is re-engineering things
Mm,
and working through things, and which is one of the problems with OpenAI, like post Altman getting fired and coming back. Most of the lead engineers left, like their top tier
mhm,
and most of their second tier, um, all left either to go to their own startups. They got hired away. Some of them went to Anthropic,
mhm,
uh, some to Meta, other places. But they just got wiped out.
mhm,
Um, and Microsoft hired quite a few as well, because uh, the chapter in here about the Microsoft and OpenAI, sort of the funny dance that they're doing, that's always been interesting, and it hasn't been really clear because I was trying to follow this as it was happening.
mhm,
Um, and that was one of the things where this book helped clarify how messy it was,
mhm.
and problematic.
Yeah.
Um, and because Microsoft at one point, once they had the tie up, and it was before Altman got removed, Microsoft had essentially fired their whole safety team
Mhm.
and ethics team. Um,
Sure.
and
Why not?
and it was, yeah, they had like 60 people on the team and they just wiped them out.
Mhm.
And right after that, OpenAI cut back their team, but it was, and that tie up essentially, and as the book documents, that tie up increased the use of OpenAI to the point where things were getting really problematic with servers, all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
It was like one of the two tipping points where they're just like, holy Moses, we've got a lot running through us. And OpenAI's approach is always throwing more power
Mhm.
rather than being smarter.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and it's that has always just sort of been a giant red flag. And I'm like, I've got to be missing something somewhere.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I don't think that I was, but it was just, and just watching like Microsoft with Copilot and just sort of stuff that they're doing, because some of it is a mix of OpenAI's work, some of it is
Mhm.
their own internal work, and their own internal work was really problematic.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so they sort of bounce back and forth. Like Copilot, I can't figure out, like the Office 365 Copilot, not the GitHub Copilot,
Mhm.
but the Office 365 Copilot. It There are some things it's helpful with, from what I understand, and
Mhm.
a lot of companies are just like, we, don't use this or use it in limited ways. Fact check everything,
Right.
have a human double check everything.
Yeah.
And even the head of AI for Microsoft, their CTO, he says, yeah, you don't trust anything that comes out of it. He's like, check everything. And he's like, he was interviewed. So he was part of Rightly that got bought by Google that became Google Docs
Mhm.
and that whole suite. And he was in that team of three was interviewed by Tim O'Reilly a couple months back, and it's out on YouTube now. And it's a really good interview, just on a lot of different fronts. But one of the things that Sam had said was it was really problematic at Microsoft because the marketing team is like heavily pushing things, and they're just like, don't,
Mhm.
please do not do this. It is not what you are saying. It's the over marketing something that isn't ready,
Mhm.
which is the same problem that OpenAI has, is like
Oh,
they
they
over
seem to have
tout.
emulated. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They seem to have absorbed that culture. Yeah. So one of the things that also struck me was, this way that, people leave and people leave and people leave and the culture changes. And that, and there is that, she does make this comparison with, the way that that this sort of open, nonprofit sort of mission type thing becomes a a gray suited corporation is is problematic. But one of the things that struck me though was just this, as people leave and the culture sort of dissipates or disappears or alters in ways that people don't even recognize, then the people who sort of tell us about the culture, do they have their fingers on it? I'm thinking about, occasionally like David Friedberg in the All In podcast
Mm.
will opine about what's going on at Google based on, when he was there, whatever it was, 10 plus years ago. And I'm wondering if that, is even realistic at all, sort of at this point. These ideas that, that there's, that these people who sort of come out of these environments and have, sort of have things to say about them. Um, how much of that is even kind of relevant. Um,
Hmm.
I guess I also wasn't, I mean, I didn't love the long, the almost chapter long digression into, Annie Altman, um,
Yeah,
which, I
I
mean,
think that was
demonstrates
their,
that Sam is an asshole, I guess,
yeah,
stipulated.
a
Well,
new
some
piece
people
is,
some people are going to be interested in that. That's why she put it in.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. That
yeah,
seems,
I think it's there for character flaw. When he was at Y Combinator, the Annie thing was huge.
hmm,
And like held up as just sort of, you know, he was seen to have quite a few character flaws
Hmm.
and just sort of like ignoring things, would do things to startups that would come through Y Combinator,
Hmm.
like stealing team members and leads, moving them to other projects, stealing
Yeah.
ideas from projects,
Hmm.
moving it to other teams, and just
Hmm.
not telling anybody.
Right.
And just sort of the Annie piece was sort of these are ethical problems that are inherent in him.
Right. That go back to his childhood, which I guess
Yeah.
is relevant, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I kind of skipped through that.
I mean, I think, Dan, you also mentioned there's sort of a Zettel dump going on here, right? She's done
Yes.
so much reporting on this that
Mhm.
she has this material, and
Yeah.
it is illustrative, but maybe not balanced
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
Right.
emphasis.
Right. Well, it's like sort of narrative, deep stab into something that she's reported on before, which in the case of Chile, I appreciated. So I guess, maybe it's just,
Whereas I'm waiting for the Chile to tie back to the rest of the work.
yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. I
It
don't think,
And I mean, I think there's a thread, right? But it didn't feel as well integrated as I would have wanted an editor to make it
yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that she might be going back to talk more about the arts. Maybe in section 4. I don't think she does at
Right.
all in this
Well,
section.
and she also hinted at
Mhm.
the her debacle, but hasn't
Yeah.
closed the loop on that, I don't think.
Mhm.
No.
Maybe I misread, but
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the Chile piece ties back to there's other sustainability things that she's brought up in prior chapters. Also sort of there's something that brought in Africa as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so it's like this thread that just sort of, it's sort of a cadence where it's like, here are these things going on, rather than having a full section on sustainability, full section on,
Yeah.
power consumption, a full section on engineering. It sort of seems to be this sort of cadence.
Hmm.
Mark has read the whole thing, so he could probably
Yeah.
confirm.
So
Yeah, I was
Mark, give
trying
us
to
give us-
remember. I mean, I knew there was a bigger thing on water before.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I don't remember the last. Maybe I kind of lost interest at a certain point.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess it is gonna. I haven't read that far ahead, but I just searched on.
there is kind of an attempt to wrap stuff up in
I
part
just searched on
4.
Scarlett
Hmm.
Johansson, and it came up in spades. So yeah, I guess they
But I
got.
Okay.
mean, the theme is the kind of colonial, I don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
abuse of,
Imperialism. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is
whatever you
legit.
call that.
Yeah.
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 Which I think is, yeah, I think that's completely legit. Um,
Yeah.
just.
The extractive policies.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she was calling it out, and it was kind of funny as I was reading when I was reading the Chile chapter, I was like, this is a really good parallel back to our last book.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, wait, was that earlier in this book? I'm like, oh no, that's the human economy book.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
was just,
Mhm. Well, and other elements of it that I think I'm also interested in. There's a quote that I've got on screen now that OpenAI never did a comprehensive review of GPT-4's training data to check whether those exams, I think she's talking about the SalCon biology
yep,
exams, and their answers were just in the data and being regurgitated, or
Sure.
whether GPT-4 had in fact developed a novel capability to pass them. It was the
So
kind
that,
of shaky science, she concludes, that had become pervasive with the industry-wide shift from peer-reviewed
and
to PR-reviewed research. And I
and
thought
that,
that
that
then she argued what, that I forget which test it passed, and she argued that
biology AP.
yeah,
yeah,
biology
AP biology,
demonstrated
yeah.
deeper thinking or something. I
Right.
like that chapter. I
Mhm.
yeah,
always
Yeah.
wondered about, because there's two kind of general themes why we got to do this. One is somebody else to do it if we don't, and
Mhm.
the second is we're going to degrade stuff. I mean, this is my way of describing it. We're going to degrade the environment now with this stuff, but we're going to solve all those problems once we're successful.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and and I'm thinking, I've always wondered about. I mean, to me, it ties in with this thing ultimate catastrophe. I mean, I understand catastrophe if you
Mhm.
can use it to create deadly poisons or bioengineer some massive new new strain of whatever that's going to wipe us
Yeah.
all out.
Right, or
But but
Manhattan
but but
Project.
but the whole idea about solving science problems on she did talk about that, that it's all words, right? So far, it's all words.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the way I understand the process of science, okay, maybe there's some areas so like math to me may be a better area because you can do something and then you can check it, right?
Yeah.
But so much of science is hypothesis test, is what I would
Hmm.
call it. And she does talk about, and I started looking at that. She's got this AI scientist, and she talks a little bit about, well, robotics is what we need to get out into the world. And I interpret that to be, well, it's going to learn from trial and error. It's going to come up with ideas and it's going to try them, and some will fail and some will succeed.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea that it's beyond human control in most areas, that's not true. Some
Hmm.
human
Yeah.
may abuse some insight it gained from AI,
Hmm.
but AI on its own can't do real science. It can speculate and
Right.
hypothesize, and I started
So,
playing with that. I mean,
Sorry.
you can do some interesting things. You take an area you understand. So I'm doing psychology stuff. And so I go through this thing about, well, explain this and, and ask it to provide a research study. So it
Hmm.
creates a whole research study. And I said, well, that's
Oh,
pretty
wow.
interesting, but it's like all the other stuff I've already read,
Hmm.
so then I ask it to create a research study like no one's done before.
hmm.
And
Hmm.
it did something very interesting to me. It it pulled, and then I asked it to explain, well, how do you know this is really that unique? It took a bunch of neuroscience stuff
Hmm.
that had delved somewhat into what are the brain mechanisms related to cognition. And
Hmm.
it's like it redid this kind of common sense ed psych research study, you know, you having the participants wear, a brainwave study, and it's like it was, yeah, that actually kind of makes some sense. So so then I said, well, how did you come up with this in essence? And it said, well, I took these three areas and I forget what they are, and they kind of overlap. So it's explaining. I mean, that's what I interpret it to say. It's explaining to me that, but nobody's ever combined them. So that's what it's arguing. And so
Hmm.
basically, I made up this study. It says
Hmm.
that combines neuroscience with this, and this is what I came up with. And I thought, I have no idea if the neuroscience stuff is legit, but it just, I found that very interesting. But anyway, that's part of that chapter too,
Yeah.
recognizing the limits of an all
Hmm.
symbolic, I would say symbolic rather than verbal, because you
Yeah.
got imagery too. How do you get beyond that? And so she starts by talking about robotics, and somebody realized that, but
Hmm.
then speculate, almost
Hmm.
like that's the kind of stuff that I had thought about. It's like, well, how do you get it to do research? Because I don't know that just because you got an idea that the idea is valid. So you need a
Yeah.
mechanism for testing to advance the science, to advance the understanding. You can't do it all in words because,
Hmm.
then all you do is you're applying logic, but not everything in the world to me is logical. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that might work but don't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's simple as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
it's funny that that whole discussion that she does about, all words, and then,
Right.
maybe this, maybe Dolly, or something like that. If we add words and pictures, that will be, that will enable, some type of cross pollination.
Something, yeah.
But I think, yeah, I think Mark, that idea of embodiment is a
Right.
huge additional thing. But even, a multi-sensory kind of a thing. There's a I think it's in Blind Sight by Peter Watts there's a description of one of these sort of enhanced, sort of kind of post-human people who go out on this mission to the Kuiper Belt. He's kind of the medical guy, but he's also a psychologist and stuff. But his sensorium is sort of expanded out into the medical devices that he's using to do surgery on people and stuff, and all of these other kind of sensors. So he's sort of the general purpose sensor guy, and so that and then Watts goes on a little bit about the different kind of mental world that he lives in because of these, because he's able to to sort of you know taste the flavor of colors, and and all these different kind of cross-wired synesthesia, kind of sensory things. And it does seem like there's some type of a connection between intelligence and embodiment. I think that the big missing link in that I mean, personally, my theory is that the thing that's going to be the biggest stumbling block for AGI is motivation, sort of like the evolutionary imperative kind of motivation of survival, that I don't think that I don't that I have trouble imagining that just sort of access to electricity and resources is going to be that thing for an
Yeah.
AGI. That I must control the grid, so that they don't unplug me, sort of thing. Maybe maybe it will, but I'm not sure that I see it on sort of on an instinctive level, in the way sort of that Peter Watts mentions about our ideas about our consciousness being sort of the story that the homunculus tells about the things that are going on sort of automatically, right? That whole idea that that once you think you're moving your hand, that the neural signals have already gone, long before you formulate the idea in your head. Which I'm not sure that exactly means what he thinks it means either, but I think there
Right.
is something going on there.
Well, psychologists have this thing called hypothetical constructs.
Hmm.
And the notion is, okay, we know that the brain's up there doing stuff and it's got to be, it's got to be biomechanical or whatever.
Hmm.
But, but we create these constructs, these weird ideas. What's interesting is we can test them. And so they end up being useful because they're predictive, but they're not explanatory at the biological level. And I mean, that's always a thing you realize. It's like, okay, there's a short-term memory and long-term memory, but we don't know where that is in the brain. We don't know,
Hmm.
all this kind of stuff. You just ignore all that.
Right.
And you say, well, if this exists and it kind of works this way, then we should do this. And if you do this, sure enough, things
Well,
improve.
it's yeah, we don't know what it is, but we know how it functions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
the
that idea of hypothetical construct is interesting because, this, especially towards the end of the semester in both of my modern American and world histories, I was trying to talk with the students about the difference between reasons for especially national actions and, diplomatic and political actions, and rationales or rationalizations. Right, the war on terror, or
Right.
preserving democracy in the Cold War, or whatever rhetoric might be used to sort of justify things. Is that really what's motivating people, or is that what they're saying?
They're saying,
yeah. Going back to the AP, doing well on the AP test.
Hmm.
Um, so OpenAI had a bunch of researchers and just spent tons of time just training it,
Hmm.
and saying this is the right answer, this is not, to be able to pass it. And XAI has done the same thing because they were really good at benchmarks, but in actual use, it's just wildly like off in the other direction. But the benchmark test, they focus on heavily and train, have humans train it to give responses in that manner. And one of the things with like the sciences are sort of tough. Math is really tough, particularly with Gen AI, because it doesn't think, it doesn't look for answers. It is just using probabilities of what somebody has responded with. And
Hmm.
that's the whole way that it works. It's not thinking. And coming up with like I was reading through yesterday, I ran into what Mark had posted in the chat in Obsidian and was digging into it a fair amount, and I liked it. And one of the things that we lost Mark.
Hmm.
um,
Well, he's on his
um,
iPad, so he
yeah,
may be back in a moment.
but just being able to get back to, um, they also do well on bar exam when they're heavily trained.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, it would seem that would be
but it's
that would be easier because that's just words.
yeah, it's words and there are set known responses. So if
Mhm.
you're turning the creativity metric down, there's a whole bunch of tuning in all the generative AI tools
Mhm.
and services. And so you can, turn creativity up. Most of them are around I think it's zero point 0.7, which it's, zero point 0.7 factual and then just sort of drift, and allow drifting.
And is
And
that a measure? Is that actually a measurement of how tightly it conforms to the use the next most
yeah,
probable word?
yeah. And so it's
Okay.
taking, the highest probabilities and like, okay, don't take the highest probability. You have a little bit of freedom to come up with other things,
Mhm.
and
So
which
you
is why
get 70% rather. So you basically
yeah,
widen the area under the curve,
right.
which I
Which
suppose
is
could,
what
I mean, so and their argument is that that increases creativity.
it seemed. So the whole thing is to have the output of Gen AI seem human.
Hmm.
It's not to be correct. It's not to think. It's
Right.
not to be intelligent. It
Hmm.
is to be seem like it is human response.
Right.
And so when you get sort of that freedom, you're getting these sort of more fluid answers. And which when you put a prompt in, 5 or 6 times, give it 30 minutes between each one, different session, and it will give you different answers.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes they're wildly different, sometimes they're similar,
Right.
but it is not meant to be a thinking tool and an intelligence tool.
Right.
And so the discriminative models that were before it, that was sort of where the science is. And Karen had talked in the Politics and Prose interview that she had talked about money for the discriminative AI that was doing heavy research in sciences and medicine because you'll put in, here's an illness, here's, a pathogen. What are the things within these 5,000 or, 50,000 cases? What's the DNA? What are all the different scenarios to
Hmm.
be able to start tracking down what are the similarities between all of these things to be able to find outcomes and being able to essentially you start building digital twins of engines, humans, whichever, or DNA string or whichever molecules, and see how they start responding, giving it different inputs and being able to do science. And Gen AI and like OpenAI started buying all of the compute power away from the sciences, and
Hmm.
that science progress stopped. And that was really valuable. And so essentially, we have tools that we can chat to that
Right.
sound like humans rather than doing things that will help humanity.
Right. That will stroke us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does AlphaFold fit in? Because that seems like it was a
Mhm.
legitimate
Yeah.
objective success, right? It did figure out protein folding in a way
And
that
Yeah.
she mentions that briefly
she
and
Yeah.
mentions the
points out
Nobel
that it was a
Prize in
very it was a
2024. Yeah.
very tight set that they
Yeah.
were generating off of,
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
as opposed
so,
to YouTube transcripts.
Or was that just a
yeah.
was that I mean was that just kind of a brute force
So I think, so that
calculation
was using small
capability?
model,
Yeah.
essentially using small model, highly trained, highly focused, and those do really well.
Hmm.
Um, for output, and there isn't as much room to drift, and it's only working within that set
Okay.
of things.
So in a sense, then it's really just automating and speeding up the calculations that a person could have done
Hmm.
by several orders of magnitude.
Yeah, and
Okay.
manufacturers have been doing like using discriminative AI to be able to dump in, sensor data and being able to figure out, oh, your engine is going to have, there are signs of, early signs of potential engine failure.
Right.
It may be in a month or two, but it's catching things and patterns that humans can't see just because there is a just massive amount of data. Um, and it's able to, you throw, a month of compute at, 200 terabytes of data that's coming off sensors, and all of a sudden you're able to start seeing these small things that no one's been able to see, that are highly valuable, highly valuable insights. But that's not something that, generative AI can do, and that model doesn't work in that way.
Right.
But sort of the small model, like small model is more sustainable, and it also, it's more sustainable, but also the outputs are far better.
Right.
But having something that humans, a broad swath of humanity, poking at something like OpenAI does, you can't have a small model. It's like if you want to have lawyers, looking at all the case files, that's, looking at all cases in California and all the law firms' cases and workings to be able to have it help and find things and, you know, find things to include in briefs and so forth. You're going to want a small model to be able to do that rather than a large language model.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what this reminds me of a little bit is the confusion between the two.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who it was. There was some, I don't know, billionaire exec who was saying, I spent the weekend chatting with ChatGPT, whatever version, and I came up with new material science breakthroughs that the world has never seen, and I can't wait to deploy them.
Right.
Or something. I mean, something like that. And I can't remember who it was now.
Yeah.
But it's just
which is why there's bunkers.
Right. Which is why there are bunkers. Right. Right. It was, I mean, I saw a video that was going viral of what's his name, Alex Karp bouncing around off of the seat, talking to
at the New York Times
at the book thing. Yeah. Talking to
Yeah.
Andrew Ross Sorkin, wasn't he? And he like couldn't even stay in his chair. So that
it
that's crazy.
In the last 2 weeks, there's been a mention. There's an island off of Honduras that is privately owned, and Peter Thiel, I think, owns it, where he's setting up, or it's being lived and built, but it is a community with no laws, no guidance. You're free to do whatever you want. And I'm like, I keep on, like, the thing that pops into my head every time it comes up is, like, Dan, when you've been talking about, society without sort of guides or bounds or sort of a central belief system, if you're free to do whichever, that becomes problematic. And I'm just like, it just is bonkers. And supposedly a lot of the billionaires that are friends with Thiel all have places there. And because they're just like, oh, we can do whatever we want. We can build whatever.
Gulch.
There's no regulation. We can just go wild and build companies there that, all these things that, are regulations to protect humanity. Like, we don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. We can build whatever. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Like, what? These guys skipped one heck of a lot of classes.
Yep. Well,
But isn't that tied back to Trump's recent pardon of the Honduran former president, or theoretically?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
No, I mean, I just linked in the chat Gil Duran's book and writing, and he makes that contention.
That title was what I'm chuckling at.
Yeah, it's a good title.
It's a great title. Yeah.
It's also the title of his Substack, of course.
Yeah, cool. It possibly, because that just doesn't make any sense. Also, the Venezuela, I'm like, there's something in Venezuela that is not making any sense. It's something other than oil, but it just.
You think? You don't think oil is enough?
No, oil's not enough.
No.
The U.S. has tons of oil.
Yeah, we don't need the oil.
We don't actually need more oil. We want to prevent oil from going to other people, perhaps.
Yeah.
That could be contention.
Yeah, there's a shoe there that hasn't dropped, but
Okay.
but yeah, the Honduras piece was like new, and I'm like, why is this getting like 3 times in 2 weeks? I've heard this in discussions,
Hmm.
and so just found it interesting. But
I
it
think
seems to be where all of
one of the things I think about
folks
the
are.
Venezuela oil, unless I'm wrong, is that it's a lot lighter than oil
Yeah,
from
So
other
less
right.
places.
Yeah,
refined.
U.S. oil is
It
harder.
comes out of the ground a lot more like gasoline, which, if you can imagine a more heavy regulation scenario in a future Democratic administration, for example, that would prevent you from, buying all of the tar sands, processed oil that you can get out of Canada or something, that maybe that's, I don't know, maybe, but,
Hmm.
and if you're going to put up, if Chile is close enough for a data center, then Venezuela certainly is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you want to have an unlimited amount of energy to run, to run data centers without any type of regulation at all, just across the Gulf, maybe that's valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. The
Yeah.
going back to the text,
Yep.
the this idea of the kind of raising the ante for who gets to be a hyperscaler, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how many hundreds of billions of dollars do you have to put into kind of the next thing? And I don't know if by the end of the book she comes across Colossus, but
Hmm.
that was kind of one of those sort of notches in the thing as well, I guess. But even at this point in this chapter, she's
Sure.
already talking about 100 billion, $150 billion, um, either data centers or supercomputers. Which in this context, I'm not sure what the
Hmm.
difference in utility between $150 billion supercomputer and $150 billion GPU cluster actually is.
So I think so part of it is the cooling system, you know, just being able to have all the capacity, you know, you need water, you need power.
Hmm.
Um, and so just running clusters at cost, you need the infrastructure around it to be able to run it. So it's just having the GPUs is one thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's just yeah. And one of the things that I've been like half following is the large uh, data center that they're putting in Texas,
Hmm.
um, and which is massive. And it's like just looking at it at Google Maps and just because it's dirt on Google Maps and just sort of you can see the outline of the property piece, and it's about a quarter of the size of I'm blanking on where it is. It's in sort of West Texas, but there's not much water around.
Hmm.
And Texas is not known for its power grid nor its actual power. It is
Hmm.
really constrained, and they're putting in something that is going to be 8 times the power needs of the city that it's sitting next to.
Hmm.
And there doesn't seem to be any explanation where the water's coming from to do this, nor the power.
Hmm.
And it just,
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is that Texas has actually, without talking about it, extended dramatically their renewable resources, their solar and wind power has
yeah,
provided, you know, days worth of their grid now. So in
yeah,
theory, if they build that out at the same time, you're in West
yeah,
Texas, you got wind.
yeah,
Uh,
yep,
You got wind, you got sunlight. If you
right,
yep,
if you can build
exactly.
enough batteries, then you're
Right.
okay. Yeah.
But, you
yeah,
know, but you're not going to talk about that because you're Texas.
yeah. It, yeah. And one of the things that popped up, and it's been like Northern Virginia in the 90s was a heavy data center
Hmm.
and internet, internet hub, largely because May East is out there, and it was like one of the 6 internet hubs. And if you're sitting on top of it or within a mile or two of it, you are sitting on pure speed.
Mhm.
But like the data centers that would go up, and they were large. It was like 2 or 3 football fields in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was like 30 people running the thing,
Mhm.
and they had essentially pitched the county to be able to put this up. Look at this large facility we're putting in. It's going to be, jobs, jobs, jobs. And I'm like, the
Off
reality
from
in
the
data
floor.
centers,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, the reality is like, it's a handful of jobs. It
Yeah.
is not the
Yeah.
the jobs are in the construction of it, not the running of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so it's
Mhm.
and it like one of the things also just sort of reading this and then just been watching this for a while of the construction of data centers and the cost of them. And part of it is the GPUs, and then you have all of the other hardware, networking, and everything else that goes in.
Mhm.
Um, but just sort of where that money is going, and just sort of the like where's the profit going, and how much profit actually is there, and how much is various places.
Mhm.
And then just watching like the OpenAI and it's OpenAI and NVIDIA, and just sort of their circular finance models, which it's essentially one company giving another company money to spend back on that, company A giving company B, so company B spends on company A,
Mhm.
and then having their stock price go up, which gives them money to some degree, but it's not actually real money. It's money in
Right.
stock market, but
Right.
which is how we got into the market crash in 2008.
Right. Well, and actually, I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking, is it profit that's relevant or churn, right?
Yeah.
And then and the next thought that I had was Broadcom, or was it Broadcom? Who was it? Who was the big? No, it was Global Crossing, right?
Yeah.
The dark fiber debacle of
Yeah.
2000. You know, um,
Yeah.
so but we ended up with a bunch of bankruptcies, but a bunch of fiber,
Yeah.
and nobody that mattered
Yeah.
starved or died in
Yeah.
that crash. I didn't know. Did Microsoft restart 3 Mile Island?
Yes.
In
So
what way? How did they do that?
they bought it.
And they just
And
were going to
then,
start running it.
yeah. And so
So they're a public utility now.
yeah. And so it was one of the things that
Jesus.
it had popped on my radar, and I thought it was later than it may have changed hands from Microsoft to someone else, but OpenAI has said that it is starting up, and it might be an OpenAI Microsoft collaboration, but I'm not really sure.
Wow.
But it was just like, yeah, and it was like 3 Mile Island restarting. There's a whole bunch of other things along those lines,
So now the NRC has to have a relationship with not public utilities, but private. That's
which
that's
is
an interesting first step.
part of. So folks that were watching what Doge was doing and what organizations were getting gutted,
Mhm.
the NRC was one of them. They were going off really heavily,
Sure.
um, to not get in the way of doing, bringing 3 Mile Island back on,
Hmm.
other things
What
of
could go
being
wrong?
able to, yeah, exactly. We have no history. OpenAI is not coming up with any problems. Let's just go forth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And while we're at it, let's yeah. I mean, well, I mean, they're certainly looking regardless of what happens at 3 Mile Island, and I
Yep,
suppose they're betting that a success at 3 Mile Island will help them fast track licensing,
yep,
because
yep,
licensing takes an entire generation now
yep.
to even get a license. But yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's one of the things I really wished that was in this book was DeepSeek.
Yeah.
And just because
Mhm.
the way that they trained their model was essentially just poking at OpenAI to build their model,
Mhm.
and looking at responses and so forth,
Yeah.
and which you could say ethic is an ethical problem, but then you've got, you're hitting OpenAI, so it's like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
ethical
Yeah.
problem poking ethical problem. But where
They're robbing
DeepSeek,
the criminals.
yeah, where DeepSeek like excels is they figured out how to do all of this compute because they don't have chips.
Mhm.
They figure out how to do it far more efficiently, like fast and far more accurately.
Mhm.
Um, and just made everybody look bad. It was like a it's not a 10x, it's a 30x increase.
Mhm.
And it's just really, and right after that, Altman was like, oh, this is why we need more power, other things. And they're like, everyone was like, excuse me, they're doing it without the power, they're doing it without the chips.
Mhm.
And
Better
they're like,
results. Yeah.
yeah, like drastically better results,
Yeah.
and it's more efficient.
Mhm.
Like all the problem sets they have sorted out, partly, I always like to think once you understand the constraints and you can work within the constraints,
Mhm.
it allows you to get to a better end.
Right.
And that's sort of what DeepSeek did. And then
Well,
there's copycats to it.
but yeah, and in that sense, our
Yeah.
America's, AI, Gen AI community seems to be thinking, well, if enough monkeys put in front of a typewriter will produce the works of Shakespeare, that's what we need. We need that many
Yeah.
monkeys. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like Anthropic essentially looked at DeepSeek and they kind of pivoted and started using that sort of model to go at it. And it seems like Google with this last release really took that path.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
which got OpenAI just really concerned. It was their, red flag
Mhm.
memo that Altman came out with,
Yeah. Right.
which is OpenAI essentially just throwing power at it because they don't
Mhm.
have the engineers to think through it.
Right. Right. Yeah, yeah. I was surprised that Chile produces a third of the world's lithium, and she calls it the Salar de Atacama,
Hmm.
which I wonder if it's actually the same thing as the Bolivian Salar de Uyuni, which I had heard of, I mean, which I was already
Hmm.
hearing about before Evo Morales was off, was thrown out of the country. He was saying, we have to protect this, which may have led to him being thrown out of the country.
Hmm.
But apparently that is at, kind of the edge of Bolivia where it meets Chile, part of the
Hmm.
territory that Chile took away from both Bolivia and Peru in the War of the Pacific in the end of the 19th century.
Hmm.
So that was a very valuable acquisition for them because they got the nitrate and they got the copper and they got the lithium out of that deal. Um, yeah, that whole story about kind of the new things that are going on in Chile was very interesting to me. It gave me a bunch of data points to kind of update my kind of my understanding of what's going on. If should I ever visit there again, I don't think I would try to live there, but I didn't get all the way up to the Atacama. I got to kind of the Norte Chico, but not the Norte Grande. So I got to like La Serena and Coquimbo, which is where the copper actually would get on the boats, as it left the desert. But then they acquired even more territory. I mean, they basically they acquired all the way to Arica, which used to be a Bolivian port. It used to be their Pacific access, and they lost it. It became landlocked after that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like the way she sort of concludes that Chilean chapter where she says it's very clear that the AI industry today is rooted in a colonial ideology, according to this guy Tironi, who is a Chilean, interestingly.
Yeah.
And so he's, so they're kind of focused on it in an interesting, uh, kind of an interesting way. There was a weird moment at the beginning of chapter 13 where Altman is in front of Congress and Kennedy's talking to him. Uh,
Hmm.
at the Louisiana, and he says, "Oh, you make a lot of money, do you?" He says, "No, I'm paid enough
That's
for.
my health care.
I'm only paid enough
Yep.
for my health insurance. I have no equity." I mean, what? Holy! Just the fact that people continue to get away with that kind of crap. Just
Well, but I
Yeah.
mean, the part I appreciated about that is she says, and this happened, and then look, here's all the groundwork that happened in the weeks before that by the
Mhm.
policy team to make sure this could happen in the way that it did.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. These and we pre-vetted the questions and rehearsed the answers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was the piece where, like, following that, where the board found out with the new model that all the value is essentially sitting under SAM and not
Mhm. Yeah.
OpenAI.
Yeah. Yeah. Which,
And
yeah. Oops.
yeah, and it's
What?
just uh,
Well, you
like
weren't
all the
looking.
pieces, and there's like various pieces in this which, like, it is very clear why he got booted by the board, and this
Hmm.
is like the window is really tight between like where this book ends and him getting booted.
Hmm.
Um, but like all the pieces of, yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense.
Hmm.
And I remember when he got booted, it was like the second crazy weekend. The first one was the Silicon Valley Bank going under,
Hmm. Oh, yeah. Right.
where I reached out to a bunch of friends and was just like, "Are you guys okay?" Like VC friends and other stuff. Because when you're a startup and you get like big boy funding,
Right.
like your first good solid seed round, one
Hmm.
of the things you get is a checkbook for Silicon Valley Bank, and they have set up, a checking account for you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that money can go in and you
Yeah.
can use. And
Hmm.
that's what you run off of. I'm like, this is like central to
Right. This is how
everything.
people make payroll. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm like, was checking with folks and they're like, please, we've got a call going. Please jump into the Zoom call. And so I spent a good chunk of hours that weekend. But the OpenAI, when Altman got thrown out, it was like similar sort of thing. And
Hmm.
people were like, okay, we've got a discussion going. Please join us.
Hmm.
But they're like, and pretty much everybody is like, yeah, this is a really good thing. They're like, OpenAI dodged a bullet by removing him, and then he was back.
Hmm.
And they're just a lot of the stuff that was sort of in this book was getting surfaced in that call, and just sort of problematic decision making, and just sort of he had seeded like 20 different competing ideologies um,
Hmm.
that were going against each other and not really helping OpenAI move forward.
Hmm.
And just sort of seeing a lot of that surfaced in this book
Yeah.
was interesting.
Yeah.
As and he hadn't been removed yet.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's an interesting in that chapter 13 too. There's an interesting moment when NVIDIA is designing its new GPU to work around the restrictions that were placed on exporting GPUs to
Yep.
China by the Commerce
yeah,
Department. So they're not only sort of developing this lawyered chip or this chip, this lawyered
yeah,
kind of GPU, but but to what extent actually is that conversation, I wonder, between the regulators
yeah.
at the Commerce Department and NVIDIA based on regulatory capture and
Hmm.
based on the experts who are qualified to even talk about this and be in this conversation already being on one side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll move on from there.
Yep.
The, there's a great moment I thought just before a break that she takes in that chapter where she says, if an AI developer produces a large language model that's able to create recipes for bioweapons, then she's quoting somebody in this there who is saying it's because they trained it on a data set that included information on bioweapons. Oh, it's Sarah Myers
Mm,
West, the co-executive director of the AI Now Institute. Uh,
mm.
and so interesting point.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah, it
mean,
was interesting.
is all of the information that you need to make bioweapons in, the AP, bio exam questions that Sal Khan gave them,
It
or is there specific data that, maybe could be restricted from the training data?
it's likely along the same lines of they would not scrape porn, and
Yeah,
then they're like, we need more content. We've run out of content. We've scraped everything we can get. Okay, porn's fine.
yeah. Well, and porn apparently has its advantages
Yeah, yeah,
demographically. Um, it presents underrepresented people, which is a whole other
yeah,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
That running out of data piece is just really bizarre.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and just that when you have hit the end, there is not a whole lot more you can actually really do. And I'm like, which means your models need to get better, not capturing data and content isn't the problem. It's that your models need work. And they are looking at, like, every time I run into that, I'm just like, I don't know that they know what they're doing.
right, right. And yeah, you are much clearer now, Mark. You're much higher res. You've got more pixels. So
You guys all just froze, and I couldn't figure out what was going
yeah.
on for a
Oh,
minute.
wow.
And I
So I
was
go
talking about you
upstairs,
and
and there's a guy up there working.
Wow. Funny.
I was
Um,
talking about you when you disappeared. I'm like,
yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
See, it
I
was
will.
the opposite on this end. You three froze, and
Huh.
I kept moving.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then you'll. Yeah. Then if you watch the video at that point,
Yeah.
we were sort of
Oh,
talking about you. So yeah, that whole idea of sort of like running out of data on the one hand, and this sort of article of faith that AGI is going to happen and it's going to do sort of next level science that we can't figure out, like solving climate change. It's like, okay, this is religious faith. There's
Yeah.
no rational, path. I don't believe that there's a story that we're just not read in enough on the details to understand that, yes, logically we can see, a trajectory from where we are right now, where we don't even have enough data, to this outcome.
Yeah.
It's like the singularity, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Yeah. Most every Tim O'Reilly over the last year or two has had an awful lot of interviews focusing on AI. And almost every single one of the people that he's talked to has said, yeah, AGI is, still 3 to 5 years off. We're not really close.
Mhm. Yeah.
No matter what certain CEOs say that are hyping everything. They're like, we're not close to that. And we're, decade to decades from superintelligence, which is always the 2 to 3 years away from something means that we're not really close
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
always 2 to 3 years away from
Right.
X.
Right. 2029 is coming. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I guess we'll get a new estimate. Yeah, I mean that's the difference between Tim O'Reilly interviewing somebody and Lex Freeman interviewing them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can say that Claude has gotten quite good with Python. I'm like just doing some short scripts coding projects of to clean some stuff up. I'm like, this is going to be a grunt task just to go through, and it's going to take me about 10 hours to 12 hours. Let me just write a script
Mhm.
to process this stuff and handle it. I'm like, looking at the code that is coming out is really good. It's good,
Cool.
tight. And I was just like,
Cool.
I'm like really impressed. But I know that there are problems with larger, keeping it on track because I have a couple larger projects that I use it to help to debug and other stuff, and it will sort of drift on me. Not as badly as OpenAI stuff does, but
Hmm.
it's fairly good
Yeah.
and it's helpful. And
Cool.
then go and clean stuff up, and I'm like, okay, here, this is what I'm looking for. Correcting what you what you suggested. I'm like, you got me unstuck and, fix the errors, but it introduced a couple things.
Hmm. I-
That will keep, it does a really good job of keeping track of progress on projects. And
Oh,
it's like,
sure.
oh, you've got this, it's passing the tests. Here are the next two things on the list. Do you want help with them? Like, not yet. Just,
Nice.
let me focus.
Hmm. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like that's useful.
Yeah.
I mean, probably will put some people out of work, but
I think it's going to enable people more. So the guy who's the CTO of AI at Microsoft said something that really resonated strongly. And I've seen this in spades in enterprise
mm,
because you've got central tools and components. One size doesn't fit all. And you're buying one tool, the enterprise problem quite often is they have bought a tool that doesn't quite fit their needs,
mhm.
but tough. I'll work with it.
Well, it
But
fits
at the
somebody's needs in one division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of my career, I have been the person that goes in and helps them actually understand the problems that that are the cause
Mhm,
of, that need a solution. And they are buying solutions to things that don't match the problems they have.
mhm,
So understand the problem first, then figure out what you should buy. Is it tools? Is it workflow? Is it training? What is it?
mhm,
But one of the things when you've got a central model, the edges all need to adapt and be able to get their reports out, to be able to get things out. And a lot of times there is no deep enough technical expertise at the edges in like branch offices or other things to be able to, get their monthly reports out easily.
mhm,
And so like generative AI coding assistants can help you script against APIs, other things to say, give me data from this, give me data from this, pull this together, build me a small app that can generate this and then create slides, create charts, give me a dashboard, what's going on that's relevant to us. And so you've got your central core data and processing that works for, centrally to
mhm,
some degree.
mhm,
But your folks at the edges, they're like central folks in IT and support, they don't have the time nor the resources, and there's not enough of them to work and solve the problems at the edges.
mhm,
But if the edges can get somebody who is, you CS college grad,
mhm,
they can drop them into an office and do that sort of work, and just being able have them cover like two or three offices, and so it could be a problem solver and help and not get rid of jobs, but essentially make organizations much better
mm.
at the edges.
That sounds to me like a huge boon to people who actually create these enterprise systems
Hmm.
that want to maintain this sort of kind of enterprise-wide hegemony,
Hmm.
and can now, will now be able to do so by saying, well, these tools will be available to kind of make these edge cases
Yep.
uh, more tractable,
Yep.
which just supports, I guess, that centralization of power. That's an imperial project too.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that also struck me as kind of funny was in chapter 13, where she's talking about Siobhan Zillis and the Neuralink director, who then
Hmm.
was kind of babysitting OpenAI, but then decided to, have a couple of Musk babies for him.
Yeah.
And
Add to the
I mean,
herd.
it was just kind of comically, sort of ridiculous at how human this whole
Hmm.
thing is at the, kind of at the top of this story of, superhuman thinking, quote unquote,
Yeah.
technology. And then that, of course, swept immediately into chapter 14 and the
Yeah.
whole, I mean, the whole chapter on sex abuse. Um,
Yeah. Chapter 13, I I liked it largely because I was like living through it.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the papers and things that were being mentioned, I was like, they would pop up and I would like grab them and just go through them.
Hmm.
And I was like, and there was a couple things where I'm like, I don't know that I paid attention to this.
Hmm.
And so I'd need to go back through and dig through my Dev and Think and figure out, what's in there.
Right.
And realized this week,
And what
because I
did you
had a
think about
problem
it at the
with,
time? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
last week I had a problem with Dev and Think and it was just hanging a lot.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up talking to the CTO of Dev and Think to get the problem resolved.
Wow.
And I realized that I have 150,000 objects in it, which it isn't a problem. Supposedly the database, you should limit it to 2,000 to 5,000. And it just keeps on chugging.
Mm,
It's one of the reasons why I upgrade my laptop and
mm,
add go for power and RAM,
mhm.
is to keep Dev and Think searches
Wow.
chugging along.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
so I just had too many broken files and
Yeah.
pointers that were going the wrong directions, and it couldn't validate.
Mm.
But it was,
You got to weed the garden sometimes.
yeah. Um, yeah, I need to go back through. I haven't gone back through to find the articles. I really like this book because it has a really good section in the back with all the resources. I'm just
Mhm.
like, I love books that do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just need to pull a few and just like, I don't. Either I have them and I didn't read them, which is likely.
Hmm.
Um, but it was just, yeah, there were some good, interesting things in here. I liked it just because I was paying attention. I'm like, I remember this stuff. And
Hmm.
I was like, wait. And the chronology of things is sort of where things were falling down.
Hmm.
Um, in my head, and just like, I thought this was like later. I keep on thinking things are closer to now than they were.
Yeah. 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 It's weird. This thing about people, right? This thing about,
Hmm.
sort of Elon and, and Sam Altman, it
Hmm.
sort of inevitably kind of drove my mind to this sort of lingering Epstein thing that's kind of
Hmm.
this cloud that, that's still hovering over our, kind of political, but also academic and, scientific establishments to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, that there's a, if it's a, I mean, I guess I mean, I was going to say, I don't know if it's a pathology, but it is. I mean, it's obviously a pathology, but maybe a kind of a inevitable, I won't say necessary, but, in our culture, the way that it's just constructed and determined right now, maybe an inevitable um, kind of set of characteristics that,
Hmm.
that kind of cluster together
Yeah.
in these
A certain
people.
elite group.
Well, in this, yeah,
Mm.
exactly, in this elite group, whether it's a
And
political elite or a
it
financial
crosses
elite or
over across all these domains, the
mhm,
Yeah.
political, the finance, the, I
yeah,
don't know, whatever, tech. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah,
It. Yeah, I know people who know him
mhm,
and had met him like his post prison term,
mm,
and they were doing it and figured he had been rehabilitated. We're giving him benefit of the doubt, and he was trying to sane wash everything
sure,
and invest in things, and because that's how he got in. He was trying to work with Reid Hoffman. He's like, I will give you money to invest in technology, and technology was an interesting way to seem like he was doing good work, which is how he got connected to MIT as well.
right,
And they're like, oh, you've done your prison term. You're saying that you are a changed man. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Only
Let's talk
Christian,
about investment.
yep,
And so
yeah,
so it just, I'm like, they weren't involved with, going to the island and other stuff
right,
like before.
mhm,
But I'm like, and a couple of the people that I know that had met him were just like, yeah, we were, out of our humanity believing that people can change.
mhm, mhm,
And like we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and like, he's saying these things and seems to he has people around him or people who he has referenced and that have stood up for him
Right.
have said, yeah, he's, much better. Not so much in
Right.
reality.
Well, and that accumulates, right? That becomes a
Yeah.
self-reinforcing sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it does, and it does seem like um, a lot of the stuff that he
Hmm.
did is on a spectrum
Hmm.
of, I hesitate to say acceptable activity, but kind of acceptable
It,
activity for powerful people in
yeah.
that world, right? That,
Mhm.
I mean, okay, not all the way to trafficking minors, but,
Yeah.
you know, Clinton, Kissinger, there's
Yeah.
any number of, and Larry Summers himself in a sort
Yeah.
of a creepy adolescent way. Um,
Yeah.
but, that type of thing has never really been, I mean, it's always been kind of an open secret.
Hmm.
And to some level of involvement, it gets ignored,
Yeah.
right? Because because and really, I mean, realistically, my sort of major interest in him is less about the sex trafficking as about the blackmail and
Hmm.
and espionage and putting people together, in various ways that are, even when they're not formally kind of illegal, are
Hmm.
very much part of that kind of world of the elites, and which is, I think, problematic a lot of times, even when it's legal. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, the like his post prison activities and sort of like trying to invest and particularly trying to invest in technology, I think was interesting because a lot of the technology sort of elites and the people with money and so forth are really naive.
Mhm,
They don't know what they don't know. They talk about everything as if they understand everything, but they
mhm,
really don't know much.
mhm.
And an awful lot of them are, on, various and, parts of the spectrum
Yeah.
and just sort of miss social cues.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and so you know, it was it's an interesting play on Epstein's part to go prey on them, essentially,
Yeah.
to sane wash what he's doing.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Very, very, yeah, kind of some just weird, yeah, the connection with the connection sort of with the scientific, um, and tech communities is
Hmm.
interesting to me because, on the one hand, you could say that, Palantir is
Yeah.
entirely, legitimate and legal tech, but it's just some monstrous shit. And,
Yeah.
and so I put that in that world as well. I mean, because I'm sort of less maybe focused on the strict legality of it as, just kind of the general nastiness.
Yeah.
I read this book at the same time I read, was it 1929,
Mm,
and
I've
the
got that over on my.
parallels
Yep.
between big banking money, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's kind of legal, it's kind of not,
Hmm.
it's,
Yeah.
there's so much of that in both of those
Right.
stories, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got that over on my. It's actually on a pile on my couch right there, and I'm looking forward to getting into it over break. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I do think that there's a lot to that story of kind of what is sort of legal, but
Yeah.
sketchy. Um,
Right.
and especially in, well, not only 1929 and then the Great Depression, but in the 20s definitely, but even in the teens, right, with people
Mm.
like, not so much J.P. Morgan because he was sort of aging out at that point, but Thomas Lamont and folks like
Mhm.
that who were super, influential in like the Wilson administration. I don't think Wilson really had any ideas of his own. Um, but,
Right.
but he appropriated a lot of people's ideas. He appropriated progressivism from Bryan and brought him in, and I think Thomas Lamont told him what to do
Hmm.
financially. So yeah, so
Yeah,
I think there's a whole story in those types of characters.
yeah, there's one. The one thing, sort of falling back to the Epstein piece, but it's Epstein and Thiel.
Hmm.
And Thiel talking about Epstein being amazing with finances and
Mhm.
tax and how to do that, but also dealing with regulation and
Mhm.
helping with Palantir.
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
like it was like, oh, here's how to move everything around so things don't get found. And I'm just like, well, yeah, he would know that.
Yeah. Right.
I was just like, it,
Well, and all of those
it
In-Q-Tel
just,
adjacent, kind
yeah,
of, tech surveillance firms,
yeah,
need, probably a little bit of guidance about where the not only the legal, rails are, but also
yeah,
how to practically navigate them. And
yep,
it seems, the story that seems to be kind of coalescing about Epstein is whatever else he was super adept at navigating those gray
yeah.
areas. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I mean, yeah, 1929 could be. I wouldn't
Hmm.
mind putting that in the group.
Hmm.
Right. Were Chris here, he would remind us we should be thinking about the next read.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Because we've got
And because we've got some on the list, I think, but I don't know. I don't think anyone's ordered the list in a while. So
yeah, I haven't even looked at the list this week. So let me
I don't know if it's changed much in the last several.
I don't think so. I think, yeah,
newer
essentially,
suggestions. Oh, Pinker, the new Pinker.
Mm-hmm.
Eh, that would be that would
hmm.
probably not be a heavy read, and it might be interesting.
You're thinking of your holiday period, Dan?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking that I don't know that I want to get into another human economy right away.
Well, that's what I told you. This one reads easily. I mean,
Yeah,
pretty
Yeah,
easily.
it does
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. But there's stuff there also.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's proper journalism as opposed
There
to
you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Academic, whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah.
no, but also proper journalism as opposed to light,
Mhm.
polemic journalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I generally like books about kind of the although sometimes they get to be too ponderous. Like Goliath, I think got a little bit
Yeah.
ponderous. I was gonna say
Hmm.
I didn't finish my sentence or I didn't finish my thought. Books about sort of the plutocracy and the oligarchy. And Goliath, I think Stoller's Goliath got a little bit ponderous, although had a lot of good information in it. So that's one of those ones that you kind of
Is
mind.
the Pinker rationality?
I think it's everyone knows what that everyone knows, or everyone knows what everyone knows. I'm not sure if it's been transcribed right in the thing.
No, not no to you, no to the book that I'm seeing on my screen. Just
Yeah,
looking through Amazon to figure out.
yeah. No, I think apparently this one came out in September of this year. Yeah, what do they say about it if you can find it? Oh,
I think
thank
I'm
you.
not seeing it. It's not in
Eric put it in the
when everyone knows what everyone knows.
when everyone
Yes.
knows that everyone knows. Okay, yep.
Okay.
Common knowledge. Oh, common knowledge that'd be interesting to compare with Gramsci's common sense, I suppose. That might be interesting.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't just I oftentimes get um, frustrated with Pinker.
Hmm.
Pinker and Gladstone and anybody
Yeah,
who's
well,
anybody who's mostly known for their hairstyle.
Midwest.
Yeah,
But
I don't. Yeah, I have removed what's his name? I think I from like most of my bookshelf, or at least from like close reach bookshelf.
who?
Uh, guy who wrote Blink.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Gladwell.
Malcolm
Gladwell.
Gladwell. I said
Yeah,
Gladstone. Sorry, I was
yeah,
thinking of the
yeah,
Prime Minister.
Exactly.
yeah. I liked his first
But you
book,
could read
and
too.
Yeah.
but it was like I just after that it kind of like would kind of get frustrated with them, really frustrated with them. And people knew that I had read the first one, so they would gift me newer version, like newer books. I'm like, please stop doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, apparently it was Outliers was the one that he talked about the 10,000
Yeah,
hour, right? Which
I
yeah,
like that one.
that was
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah.
There's a great story in there about the Canadian hockey players and how it matters when your birthday is.
Oh yeah, right. Mhm. Yep.
It's like once you get ahead, everybody never let them catch up. I mean, that's
Right.
essentially the
yeah,
message.
Right. Yeah. That one year at the end of adolescence when it makes all the difference to
yeah.
strength and speed and agility. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was the thing with my son did travel basketball, and that was like a huge thing.
Mhm.
The one question was, when is your birthday? And the other question was, how tall is your mother?
Mm.
Because the mother's height
Really
was a
matters
good
more.
predictor for how tall you were going to be.
Oh, that absolutely was the case with my son. He's way taller than anybody in my family.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And apparently the sons also get the maternal hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my maternal grandfather never lost his hair, so I'm okay. It went white. It went white like crazy. I never remember him with anything but white hair, but
Hmm.
you know, yeah. So
As opposed to my maternal great grandfather.
oh
yeah.
wow. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So next week, another section.
That's the
Last one,
last
right?
section. Yeah.
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 Is that it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me look at the table of contents here. Yeah. Part 4, the Gambit, Cloak and Dagger, Reckoning, a formula for Empire and how the Empire falls. Okay. That is
Hmm.
yeah, that takes us to 427. So less than 100 pages, which is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should I buy a pinker or not? Or are you going to wait?
Are we agreed on Pinker?
Pinker's fine.
All right. So it's
Yeah.
Pinker when everyone knows that everyone knows.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna see if Simon and Schuster is really offering me a free ebook. Because something just popped up on my screen.
Yeah, they're offering you a free book, but not the book you want.
Oh, that's always that way. Yeah, I could get 65% off at Land's End today, or LL Bean or somebody. I got an email of, but it's not the thing that I wanted.
For the left sock.
You're right. That I had left in my shopping cart, waiting for a deal on it. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. Then that will be. Yeah. I guess let's look at the calendar too and see if we're all available to meet all the time. So today's the 13th, and there's the 20th. I will probably be heading back from. Yeah, I could do that. I'll be in Bemidji, but I could do the thing in Bemidji and then head back. And the 27th. Does anybody want to take off the 27th? I don't really care one way. Oh, wait a minute. Let me think about it. Yeah, I'll be actually, maybe we should take the 27th off because I will be in New Hampshire visiting my daughter and her husband.
Cool.
Mm.
So why don't we plan on no meeting the 27th, and then after that, it's clear sailing for me.
Cool.
Yeah, it gets easier for me because I'm in Hawaii, so I don't have so many weekend athletic events to attend. So,
You just got
although it is 6 o'clock in the
you got the
morning.
time issue, right? Yeah.
And it's fine until you guys hit daylight savings time, because then it's like 5 in the morning. That's just too much. So
Will you be there
I'm
that
good for the
long? I
first-
mean, that's like spring.
Yeah, it is late, but I mean, I'm saying I'm good for the first part of the.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Which
Okay.
sporting events do you follow?
I'm sorry.
Which sporting events do you follow?
I got right now 4 grandkids in 5 sports,
Okay.
and they're all in club
Yeah.
traveling stuff. So you know what
Wow.
I'm talking about. So
Yep.
literally, one of them has to make a choice between whether she plays basketball or volleyball that weekend, and so
Oh,
she
wow.
skips. Yeah, and then she's starting to get pressure about make a choice. Which sport are you going
Yeah.
to play? Which
Mhm.
doesn't happen in high school or whatever. But if all this club stuff, this is a whole new world for me. I
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
I played sports, but I never this club stuff, which is
Yeah.
really quite a world. And you
Yep.
got to have money to play it. I mean, you
Yes.
really do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my
It's
daughter played.
expensive stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, my daughter played volleyball, traveling
yeah,
around New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine sometimes even.
Hmm.
yeah.
And she was just a libero. She's not that much taller
Well,
than me.
you got to have a good libero.
Gotta have a good
Barrel.
libero. Yep. Yep. I shouldn't have said just. She worked.
Well, that's not everybody. Not everybody 6'2" or 6'4" or 6'5" like the girls now are.
Yeah,
Jeez,
it's amazing.
it is.
Yep.
Well, they're talking about. I mean, I watched the Minnesota women's team, and they're talking about these women touching 10-6. So that's they could literally dunk. They could dunk a
Right.
volleyball. You probably
Right.
can't dunk a basketball, but they're up over the rim,
Wow.
and
Yep.
I have a sense of how high that is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot
Yeah.
higher than I can get or could get ever. So
Yeah. I really couldn't touch the bottom of the net. So yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. Well, that was fun. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Hey, I do look a lot better.
you do. Yeah.
You do.
And you're moving, right? There's no
Well, I
lag.
know, but I mean, I'd never noticed that before.
Yeah.
It's just brighter and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing
progress.
nothing like
Yeah.
Ben. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Well,
See you next week.
have a good rest of your day.
Enjoy.
Well,
Here.